I'll use
That's
Facebook.
completely fine.
I'll use Facebook, or how would you
No,
like me to get?
uh, you know what? My cell is probably the best thing to do.
I'll use Okay, I'll get that from Patty. There we go. I'll use Facebook, or what?
Okay,
There it is.
there you go. Now, I don't know if this is live or if I paused live.
Can you see Brent? Is he live?
No.
1 second, hang on. Just
Sal is
Okay.
probably the best thing to do.
Yes, you are live because there's a little red radar signal next to your name in my subscriptions, and then it says live around your brain thing, and then it also says one watching, which I guess is me and or Brent.
All right. Oh, there we go. It's like, okay. It's up now.
Yeah.
Okay, if you can
Yes, you
leave it in watch mode somehow, because I don't know what's going on with this, to be perfectly honest. It says live, but I paused my live, and I've done this before and it worked. But two watching, now only one watching. And the one that's watching, a stream started 75 seconds ago. That's all that I've got.
That's probably me.
Okay. So I don't know how to mute. Oh, I do. I lied. Okay, now there we go. Okay, let's see. Let's just keep going. Okay, I'll leave that running in there, and Shane is joining us, so he hasn't missed a thing.
Welcome, Shane. Glad you're able to make it tonight.
Yeah,
So, is this go time?
now it is.
Okay.
I don't know what else to do.
So we have some announcements. My Model Method Coach training is going to start February 12th through the 15th and 26th through the 1st. Ignite the Buying Conversation is going to be in March 12 through 14 and 19 through 21. We just finished last week Blair's Business Challenge, which was an amazing success. Lots of people attended, and the excitement over the information that was presented was significant. So we're going to do another one, might be hitting March. We don't have a firm date yet, but I wanted to ask Brent, what was one thing of value that stood out for you in Blair's Business Challenge? Cannot hear you. There you
Man,
are.
yeah, I know you're putting me on the spot. I was just saying, man, you're putting me on the spot. I know
I am. You can always say no, Brent.
Yeah, I can, but let's see if I can recall. I can't, then
Leslie, you're next if you need a chance to think.
yeah, Leslie, you're up, huh? Not yet. No,
Going to
one
go
thing
first, Brent?
the training. I signed up for the training, Blair's training. That was the biggest thing.
Oh, for my Model Method Coach
Me?
training.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I was getting ready for that. So I was the one thing I did try when I was on there was really focusing on how Blair, interacting, with another group, like a new group, and how he was going, going at it, asking the questions. So, observing that from the coach
Excellent.
side to see how he does that. And that was one thing I was trying to work at the same time as get some, information.
I was going to say I was watching that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, Leslie, what is something that you took away of value from the business challenge?
It helped me work on my process of when in a situation of having a process that we've talked about to how do you even start to look at an issue and work through. And I like to start with the 3 E's. And I'm getting better at then naming and labeling what the issue actually is. And then identifying it, behavior, that would work for it and evaluating and to get to a result that is identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable.
All right. Shane, may I ask you, what did you take one takeaway from Blair's Business Challenge?
I had to do a double take, see if you said Jane or Shane.
No, Shane.
But
Jane
Jane's not on,
Jane's
so I
not
knew,
here.
is not
so I
on
knew
here.
it was me. I knew it was
Yes.
me. I got my glasses on. I forgot to put my hearing aids in. No. Yeah, just that week of Blair was great. Diving into the steps to take to get yourself unstuck, the processes as the other guy said, and just the whole reality of the mind models, not what to think, but how to think and how to really shift those small incremental shifts that create good, effective habits.
Absolutely. Well, we also want to let you all know that Blair has a study guide called the BDE, which stands for Blair Dunkley Experience, Insider Notes. And you get all of the historical and ongoing notes, starting with episode 318. And tonight is episode 329. So there are at least 10 that are banked in there that are also complimentary to you. The subscription is $25 a month or $300 a year. And Blair, are you able to put the link for that into the chat for anybody
I
who wishes
am.
to
I'm
see?
working on that as we speak.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get us going then. Welcome to the 329th episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. On this show, we talk about mind models, and mind models are simple thought frameworks to help us put names and labels to how we think, just like Shane was talking about. When we understand how we think, we can learn to think more effectively and create identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable behaviors needed to finally break out of stuck states. Mind models have been extensively tested and proven to be 80% effective versus mindset, which is only 1% effective. Mind model skills and behaviors enable people to transform their lives intentionally. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, creator of Mind Models. I am your co-host this evening. My name is Patty, and I'm a certified Mind Model Method coach. The BDE is Blair's free gift to you, and it's an opportunity to learn, experience, and practice mind models in a safe, real-world environment. Personally, mind models helped me overcome more than a decade of depression. They've positively impacted every area of my life, including my relationship with myself. So we look forward to learning together with you tonight and welcome you to the BDE. Tonight, we are starting a new series. This is going to be a series on barriers, blocks, and limiting beliefs. Now, when we break these down, we're going to be talking about barriers tonight, but I think it's important to know that barriers, blocks, and limiting beliefs are not neatly separated and packaged. We're going to break them down into eaches to discuss them and to learn about them and to better understand them. But in real life, they layer and they weave in and out and they flow with one another. So they can't be completely isolated, but they will be for our discussions. And anyway, so talking about barriers, Jeremy, may I ask you, what is a
Yes.
barrier?
A barrier is a structure or an idea that is placed to separate one thing from another.
Okay. Colin, what's a barrier?
I think of those big cement things that they put on the road. That's what I think of when I think of barrier.
So what does the big cement thing do?
Hopefully it prevents people from crossing from one side of the highway to the other side.
Okay. Excellent. So barriers basically are obstacles. Is that fair to say? It's an obstacle that obstructs progress of some kind. So the barriers are intended to obstruct negative progress towards something that's going to be dangerous or destructive. But we have barriers in our own lives that impede our own progress. So barriers can create stuck states. There are ways to get around barriers, and with barriers, we can see to the other side, which isn't always true with blocks. So, Shane, may I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Can you identify what might be barriers in your own life?
Well, I mean, we're not talking about that tonight, but my first thing that comes to mind is my limited belief in myself. So I would break that down probably even a little more and say my own self-confidence.
Okay.
I'd say well done.
Yes, absolutely.
Anybody else on the call share that with Shane? Jeremy? Sherry,
Brad?
your head's nodding. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Do
So
you want to expand on that, Blair?
yeah, just a little bit. So I was thinking, so Shane, or Sherry, you've got your mic open. So you agree with what Shane said with the self-confidence. What, how might you shift that barrier, going forward? What do you need to do to overcome what's holding you back?
Well, I think personally, my first step would be awareness that, that there's something happening in the background of my daily experience that's preventing me from moving forward. So that just that awareness is the first step. And then once I can become aware of it, then I can do something about it. I can look at it and analyze it and say, okay, is that helping me or is it hurting me? How can I shift it just a little bit or pivot completely away from it to move forward?
Mm-hmm. Shane, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the stuff that you've taught over the not only just the last week but before, but break it down, write out an action plan. This is what
Right.
I need. This is what I need to do. Focus on the effective behavior. If I go back to my notes, like mine for my trading is, identify that ineffective belief that this trade could or will lose. Focus on the indicators. Does this meet all my requirements? In turn, manage the trade. And then the third step, so it's basically a three-step deal. Evaluate. Did that trade win? Did it lose? Without judgment, what took place? And so that three-step deal every morning before I trade, after Blair taught me that, was that Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
What-
I've read that page over and over again. I can't. Yeah, I got goosebumps thinking about it. It's been very effective on breaking down that limiting belief.
So, you put in there is the limiting belief, but we haven't actually covered that quite yet, correct, Patty?
Right. But this is one of
Break
those
down that barrier. So real quick then, before I know we're talking about barriers tonight, can you give me the difference between a barrier and limiting belief?
Patty?
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let's see. Barriers are things you can notice that obstruct your progress, but you can generally see around them, over them, under them. You can find a way. So, like in a dog park, the fences, there are barriers. But if a dog were to really think about it, he could probably, some dogs can just jump right over that barrier.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, and it has an effect or an impact in obstructing, but it's really obstructing the belief that the dog has of crossing the barrier. So with a barrier, they are more surmountable. When we get into blocks are harder to see. Blocks are like,
Can we just actually, I like the question that Shane
okay,
posed, which was, what's the difference between a
I
limiting?
was going to go definitions with all three.
I know,
I know,
but I
you can
was,
see my linear thought process.
yeah, I know. And I'm trying to help you become a little bit more flexible with that. So how would
Bless
that
your
go?
heart.
That's right. Yeah, right. And I will get a big fat kiss or something
I was
else.
going to say, that's really very long lips.
Yeah, really.
Here
Yeah,
wherever in Canada.
no, and not a pleasant one, by the way, whatever it is. So
No, when I opened my mouth to say that, I noticed that I was not answering the question. So thank you for pointing that out for me and the rest of the universe. Anyway, so Shane, a limiting belief frequently comes out of our own experiences that we're applying from the past and projecting into the future.
Yep.
But when they're analyzed from an externally verifiable point of view, they don't hold up. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that, Blair?
I actually like that. But if you notice, Shane and Sherry and everybody else that nodded yes to this, and even what Patty said initially in our presentation of this was that barriers, blocks, and beliefs are not clearly delineated.
Right.
Okay, so one of the key elements, Shane, that you were talking about was your barrier slid right into a belief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you get to have this abstract internal structure inside yourself that you get to take that stuff and move it out of the belief model per se and turn it into a barrier, which is like you're concreting, turning it into concrete, your internal, usually fears or at least a personal view of what you think you cannot do, and then you make it more solid. Okay, and you solidify it as a barrier or block or belief, like the belief becomes a barrier, and sometimes it grows into a full-on block.
So would the lack of self-confidence, would that, I'm firmly going to categorize that as a barrier because I can see through it. My last week has built my self-confidence. So I'm still going to
Two, 2 seconds. What I want to do is go back before last Tuesday when we broke it down.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you're really making me think.
Yeah, I know, because it would be very helpful for you long term to start wrapping your head around how did you hold yourself stuck prior to how long have you been doing the trading?
Going on 6 years.
Right. And so how long has that self-confidence been up and down and all over the place with it?
5 years, 51 weeks and 2 days.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Until like Tuesday of last week. Like
that was some quick math in my head.
yeah, right. I got your points. I was hoping it would be all but the last 7 days.
Yeah.
Would have been another way to say it. But do you notice here how you have been able to identify something, name and label what's getting in your way, yet you hadn't been able to do it for 6 years?
Mm-hmm. Well, being in that, well, we broke it down, but being in that stuck state, I was comfortable there.
Bingo. And how many people, like now we're talking about some of the other mind models that we're going to be touching on. Patty's going to be touching on here, but I'm going to go. Sherry, you talked about an awareness. We have a thing called an ANPU, awareness, notice, process, understand. Shane just started talking about his comfort state, which is another mind model called safety versus comfort. And that, when you start recognizing what those do to yourself to create stuckness so that you cannot move or choose not to move, and you don't find resources to be able to move. Now, that's really the key element. And creating the resourceful state inside you to be able to get yourself unstuck and leverageable is critical for your life, for your existence, for your safety, for not just comfort, but safety long term, because we undermine ourselves and we degrade ourselves as a result. Okay? Now, Shane had a breakthrough based on the fact that we got him. I was catching him right in the middle of language that was holding him stuck. And there was a transformation that happened almost immediately. And what's happened with your trading since then, Shane?
Well, after Tuesday night and writing down that 3-step kind of process of what to do and going through some of my previous knowledge, previous learning, I broke that process down. And then instead of like not one trade, I've come to the realization that not one trade is going to make or break you.
Correct.
So stop worrying about the one trade that you're involved in right now and think of it in probabilities. Think of it a block of 10 trades or a block of 20 trades. Am I profitable in 10 trades? So this one trade really doesn't matter because
Correct.
you can't go into the market thinking that I'm going to win every trade because you're not.
You're
And the
right.
quicker you realize that, and the quicker you that I've come to the realization that one trade's not going to matter. Get in the trade, manage the trade. If it wins, great. If it loses, that's fine too. We'll figure out what went wrong, but worry about the next one. And not even worry about the next one. Move on to the next one.
Exactly.
So in those, since I've started doing that, my block of 10 trades, I've taken more than 10 trades, but those first 10 trades in that block, I was only at like a 66% win rate. I'd like to be over 70, but I was up 91 pips or roughly 9% of my account. So
Huge.
it's been a very good game changer. That and Thursday I lost my first trade. It was a call it lesson loss. I'm like, okay, no worries. I wrote it down. My trade parameters were still there. Re-entered the trade. I re-entered the trade. I won my stop loss back plus 15 pips. I'm happy. Great.
Exactly.
The next trade comes, I actually lose that one. So now I'm back to break even. I lost 15 pips. I'm like, well. The next trade re-entered because everything was still there. I won 28 pips. I did Patty's thing. I reached over, I shut down the laptop lid, and I was done for the day. And that, like I told Blair, it was the most calm and relaxed I've been in front of the markets for five years, 51 weeks, and 2 days.
Yes, I was going to ask you, Shane, emotionally, what that's done for you.
It's taken a huge lift off. And that's why I'm still labeling my self-confidence a barrier, because I can see the other side. It's not a block.
Yeah.
It's a
yes.
small barrier. Yeah.
Yep.
With that name and label, I'd like to just bring out and share with you Blair's definitions for confidence and self-confidence. And I do not have the ability to just cut and paste that in the chat because I just don't.
Neither do I right now, but
I'm just going to tell you anyway.
good.
So with confidence is others identifying your effective use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors. So in Shane's case, prior to 5 years. Oh, thank you, Cullen. 5 years, 51 weeks and 2 days and who knows how many minutes. The trading computer. Jackie, oh, it's so good to see you. The
Yes, it
trading
was.
computer was identifying him as being effective or not.
Mhm.
And that's where he was taking his evaluation of his effectiveness. But self-confidence is you identifying your own effective use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors. And so what you did with just taking what the computer was giving you as information and then continuing with what you knew to be your skills, your effective use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors, even putting back in the same information that lost because it was good information and put it back in and see what happens. That is self-confidence right there. And I want you to notice that instead of using the computer for feedback on, or not feedback, but for verification of your skills, identifying your skills, you and the computer then becomes just information. Does that make sense to you, Shane?
Oh, absolutely. 'Cause, I mean, I have a Google Doc sheet that tracks everything. All of my computer information, all my trade information is there. But I've actually found, and I like doing it. I like knowing it because I can do things in there. I can see what this day I did and this day. But I found that I don't, inside the computer, I don't write annotations of what actually happened. And
Mhm.
so in my block, I've started my block of trades and handwriting them down as well. And I actually write notations and I actually learn more from what I'm doing on my paper versus
Right.
typing it into a
It's an
computer.
externally verifiable source of data for evaluation.
So
Yep.
Welcome,
Huge.
Lori. Very
Welcome,
good to
Laurie.
see you.
Yes.
I'm so glad you've joined us. So we are in the middle of discussing barriers. We're doing a series, barriers, blocks, and limiting beliefs, and we are talking about barriers. And Shane was sharing about his own experience with that applied to trading. Jeremy, you had your hand up.
Yes, and Lori, for your benefit, I'm going to be doing a U-turn, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. I'm going to be doing something else. I want to make an attempt at giving feedback to Shane right now. I don't remember the actual structure of it, but I know that it's one of the, yes, Blair.
Would you like to know the exact
Please,
structure?
yes, I'd like to do
Okay.
it properly.
Okay, so feedback is you sort of announced it, so that's great. I feel, feeling word, when you did whatever behavior.
Okay.
Okay, so it's feeling, then behavior.
I felt awesome when I heard how you followed through on what we talked about last week and how it's grown and it has so much life here today. And I feel grateful that I got to experience the impact of your integrity, having done all that work and brought it back to us here tonight. Because I was thinking at some point I wanted to know how things went. I didn't know if it was going to be a part of our discussion, and it has become this huge part of this discussion. So I feel awesome and I feel grateful.
Thank you very much.
Excellent work, Jeremy.
Yes, well done. Well done.
So, Jeremy, these are
Go ahead.
for you.
Oh, look, you got thumbs. You got floating thumbs.
That's a lot easier than a kiss from Michigan to
Yeah, really.
Vancouver.
Well, it was a kiss
I'm
like
sorry.
a kick in the pants, is what I was.
No, I know.
Yeah,
Just a callback, standard
yeah.
humor, like
I was going to say,
comedy.
to be known, I don't be kicking your pants. Anyway,
Okay.
so in terms of kinds of barriers, oh, just a minute. Brent, could you identify where Shane's barrier was? Where was his barrier located?
Internal.
Bingo. Yes. Well done.
Mhm.
Okay.
I
So
knew that too.
At first, I was like, "His barrier? Where are you talking about? Like his house, or where was it?" I was like, "Oh, yeah." And
you're
took me a
back
second
with
to
the
pick up on what
concrete
you were.
barriers. I don't think he has any on his farm,
Yeah.
like or ranch, not farm. Anyway, so what kinds of barriers are common to personal transformation? What kinds
Patty,
of
could I just ask a quick question, clarify
yes,
my
Colin,
thinking?
go ahead.
Okay. My understanding so far is that anything can hypothetically be a barrier, a block, or a limiting belief. It depends on how you behave to it, and that's kind of what defines it. Is that an accurate way to say that?
Mostly, for the most part, it's mostly accurate. But if you notice how you behave to it, it's what are you doing to yourself to identify whatever that barrier, block, or limiting belief is. What are you doing with it? Like, okay, take Shane as an example. Can you describe to me how he was holding his ineffective self-confidence as a barrier?
Yeah, so behaviorally it was a barrier because it was preventing him from taking some action, but it wasn't really a block because he started to act through it. And so in that sense, he was like seeing past it. He was able to, it's like, it was almost like he was dragging it around with him less instead of being totally stopped.
Yes, sort of. But if you take it prior to last Tuesday, when he had the
Yeah.
revelation and the transformation, did he even see it clearly?
No.
Did he even identify it as anything other than this feeling inside of him that's weighing him down?
No, it was awareness, but he hadn't gotten to the
Was
notice.
it actually awareness, or
No.
just this, you know,
It's like
barely, like, was it full on
yeah.
awareness, or was it like a sense of something?
It's like I don't like something.
Yeah, it's like I
Yeah.
don't like something is right. Like if you got
Yes.
to put that into words, are you okay, Shane? You're here. You are the final arbiter on this one. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and of course when Colin said just dragging it around and not making him fully stopped, and then the whole ineffective behavior, and then like you said, I feel something ain't right, but yet if it, I'm aware that something's not right, but I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, and maybe something different will happen. Well,
Right.
that's kind of is that the definition of idiotic? Doing the same things over and over again and
Well,
expecting
try
different results?
insanity, but that's okay.
So earlier you just said something, you had said something about comfort, like being in your comfort zone. I think that's a more honest and
Comfortable,
self-compassionate.
stuck. Yeah, just this it is what it is. Yeah, but and a lot of things, with my trading, and Chrissy mentioned there that once Blair calmly tried to talk me through that Tuesday night until I had my head far up somewhere, that he finally yelled at me and get me snap out of it. And because what I was doing on the charts is like, well, if I'd have just done this, or if I'd have just done that, or if I'd have just done that, and Blair's like, he literally yelled, "Stop it! It doesn't matter. You're not. Just stop it." And that I relive it. So thank you, Blair.
You're welcome. See, that is
Blair.
where what you identified, Jeremy, was the fact that we get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that holds us stuck. And that in and of itself is another barrier. Because we get so used to being uncomfortable with things, we just put up with it. We put up with our current situation. We don't look for alternatives. we don't find a way to get around it because we don't have models that work on an identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable basis. And we don't know them well enough to actually move ahead with this. This is how come, Shane, I'm so thrilled that you're either in or going to be in the Mind Model Method Coach training, because now you'll learn how to evaluate yourself and others in a way that gives you a mirror back to yourself so you can say, enough, Shane, and hold your own feet to the fire. Because the mind model method, the mind model methods, the mind models are methods, and the only set that I know that actually work on self-coaching. So
They're highly effective on self-coaching. May I address something that Colin said earlier, Blair?
Sure.
Is that okay? One of the things with belief and barrier, you're trying to make a distinction between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Beliefs are very, very internal. We might behave to them. In fact, we do behave to our beliefs, but they're very internal and they can exist. I don't know, Shane, were you aware of your limiting beliefs in this whole situation? Were you aware that, or were you just aware that something was just not right?
No, I'm pretty sure. I'd like to think I was aware of lacking self-confidence since joining, Zach and his team. They've given me their confidence because they could see what I was
Right, that's a
capable of.
barrier. That's a barrier you identified, but the belief driving that barrier, what was the belief about yourself?
that I wasn't worthy of success.
Okay.
I'm going to say that would be my belief.
Okay, so that was the belief, which
can
then,
I actually do something a little bit different here? I'm
yes,
going to
go
pivot
ahead.
this and just ask, because so many people were nodding their head in agreement
Yeah.
with Shane initially, with everybody. And Lori, you weren't here when that actually was, but we're working on barriers, blocks, and beliefs and barriers tonight. It's a series or a
It'll be a
three-episode
three-part
process.
series. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so this one is on barriers. And they all sort of meld into, not into one, but into each other. So we're dealing with barriers, but also the belief side of the barriers. And how many people see that, like Shane has a self-confidence issue that may not be, especially in trading, but we all have them in different areas. And so how do we see what we're doing that is actually holding ourselves back? What are those barriers that are in our way of us becoming the best versions of ourselves? Okay.
Which is back to the original question. So
Pretty much.
barriers to personal transformation.
And
So
what happens when we don't figure out our barriers? Do we not just stay stuck?
yes, we definitely stay stuck.
And what is the necessity? And I mean, I can't say this with enough passion. How we have to move beyond where we are. And when we don't, we for me personally, I know when I was stuck with my marriage and whatnot, a part of me was dying, like a little bit at a time. And I wasn't having a life that was fulfilling. And so when my ex asked, or told me she wanted a divorce, it just took me literally 5 seconds. Have I seen my girls grow up enough? They were 23 and 21 at the time. They're basically both adults. Yes, I had. Do I get to see them going forward? Yes. But, we were all in the same home. And then all of a sudden that changes. Had I seen that part and had that life experience that I really wanted? Yes. Did I need to continue creating an environment where my wife was at the time wanting to go in one direction and I was not wanting to go in that direction? I was wanting to continue in the direction that I was in. Was that effective? Long story short, no, because I kept on making microscopic little pieces of me were getting filed away, and I was conceding as opposed to living. And
Blair,
so,
by staying in that situation,
yeah,
was that in any way impacting your own self-confidence?
absolutely it was in ways I can only start describing now that I'm out of it. This is part of the, thank you, brilliant question, Patty, because this is the part that I wanted to bring to bear tonight and go, these barriers that we have when we become comfortable with them, they don't allow us to actually become the best version of ourselves. They hold us in whatever version we're stuck in. We think, I would tell, if you asked me back then, like a month before or 2 months before she asked me for a divorce, I would have said, I have a great life. However, moving beyond that, and on the other side of the divorce, now I've been able to explore parts of me that I didn't think were possible, which in fact they weren't possible then. I've been able to find me again because I lost myself and I no longer was my own best friend. Like something I rarely share, but my first coffee date that I went on was with a lady by the name of Dr. Nancy Love, the love doctor, as I say. So anyway, but that's her real name. She was an expert in mediation. And I wound up, we talked and I helped her, she helped me. But the point of this first coffee date, I helped her get resourceful using some of my counseling methodologies that I've created. And one of them was called catalytic counseling. And the main one is operant effectual counseling. And the third one is conversational counseling. And I use conversational counseling on her. She didn't catch it at the time, but she did. Three days later, she called me and said, were you using something like, were you counseling me? Because she was stuck too. And I said, yes. And she's one of 3 people in like 40 years that actually has figured out that they actually were counseled. Most people never get it. They don't see it. However, my point to this whole thing was, she said to me, Blair, you might want to become or find yourself again so that you can find that person you like. Maybe you can become your own best friend. And that sparked me into a conversation with her, took it in that direction, where I realized when I got married, I was my own best friend. And that was hugely important to me. And over the 33 years of marriage, it had evaporated. And I no longer was. And I found a way to come back to be a good friend, then a best friend to myself. But that meant I had to take risks in my life. I had to explore possibilities. I had to take a look at myself differently than I was. And that's helps us overcome barriers when we do that exploration.
Blair, would you say that could be identified as an emotional barrier?
That was
you
that was a
experienced?
huge emotional barrier. It
And
was
possibly even partially an environmental barrier?
absolutely true. But I would also argue that it was a situational barrier
Mm, okay.
because
I guess I'm thinking of environment being situations,
maybe,
not exclusively, but
yeah, no, but really a lot of that was very much of a situational barrier.
okay.
Jeremy, you wanted to say something there?
Yeah, because this is where we go off into, is Patty entering in with a new mind model, or is this deeper details of barriers? Because I don't understand the situational versus whatever the other.
Deeper exploration of types of barriers,
Yes.
not a new mind model.
Did we mention those terms yet, or did you just introduce them
I
now?
just introduced them.
That's where I get confused. Okay, great. So nobody said anything about this earlier. Thank you.
Nobody said anything. You didn't miss it. You were here for all of it. Well done. So,
But the key point, and to your point, Jeremy, I wanted to relate my personal story to how we construct subtle barriers that become almost insurmountable because we perceive them. Actually, we don't perceive them as a barrier, yet they are.
I think our barriers can also take the form of a personal story.
Yep.
So once we put ourselves into our barrier as a personal story, it's very difficult to see them as being different from, or the possibility that that might not be the story we have to live in.
Correct.
You know, so Brent, you're looking confused.
Oh no, no. I was thinking. I was really thinking. I was
Okay.
writing on like the barriers, and when you were talking, it was almost as if they, like Blair, become insurmountable. And I was like, well, would that becoming more of a block then, starting to become a block if you're not really seeing it? But then Patty, you were like, well, if you're building a story behind it, then you can't really see past it. So then you're building that up, and it can transition into a block, like that piece where it comes, or they're intertwined, or you're starting to get to see that right
Yeah,
there where you get
that
bigger, where you cannot get
filling
past
out.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, where you're
That,
starting to get not just a barrier, but making that barrier and making it bigger into a block, taking that and then
yeah,
reinforcing it to
our stories,
blinding yourself with your
stories,
story.
yeah, our
Yeah.
stories can, um, our stories can create or support the limiting beliefs we have. If we have a belief that,
Yeah.
you know, nobody wants to be my friend, then how do you behave to nobody wants to be my friend? And, where does that take you? Um, so our stories can hold us stuck as well. And that power of story can fuel fear. It can fuel a lot of our own barriers. The
When you,
difference, the mind model is real versus reality, with reality being story. Yes, Blair?
right. The whole transition point for me was starting to recognize my own barrier had sort of begun shifting into who I am. And therefore, this is the only area of my life that is okay for me to be in. And because that is the only area of my life, that's the only area that I wind up looking in. So I look at my life through tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
And through a filter, or like you could say, you put on rose-colored glasses and that filters out everything else so that you only see your life through how you've been seeing your life. although you perceive, as Shane did, a sense of what might be possible, but does the possibility actually move? And does the possibility shift in a way that you can access it, or does it shift in a way to close doors?
Mm-hmm.
And that is largely done with internal self-talk and language. And that language is all about the mind models that you use or don't use. And that's how come I'm thrilled for Brent and Shane who are coming into Mind Model Method Coach training and others. But that is huge to be able to start identifying those pivot points in your life.
But those identifications are also part of the evaluation process in the 3 E's.
Yes.
So would you, because we're kind of need to shift into wrap up, but I'd really like you to talk about the smooshing of evaluation versus judgment, especially when it comes to this kind of thing and fostering our story and keeping us stuck when we think we're evaluating and looking at all the real stuff and it's not.
Exactly. And we keep on, like, I know for me, I held myself back by just the way that I was holding myself responsible to behave certain ways and not explore new frontiers and figure out, where can I take myself? Where can I take my business? Do I choose to invest in myself or not? And so what I do is I smush. I put evaluation on one hand, judgment on the other hand, and I put the two of them there, and I look at my life together like this, and I go, right, evaluation is what I think I'm doing. But when you look at the evaluation, like if this side is the evaluation, then look at all the judgment that's still grasping on to the evaluation, that's holding me stuck. And the judgment that's there. And then I look at my judgment side and look at the judgment, and there's very little evaluation, but I can let go of the judgment with the evaluation, thinking I'm looking at it like this. But my judgment is held on to me because I'm holding myself back from doing the things and de-smushing, moving myself into an evaluative model that I could actually evaluate and see my evaluation of myself and see myself as where I am and what I need now, versus a judgment model that says, oh, I can't do this. I'm not allowed to do that. I'm afraid if I do this, this won't work. Rather than figuring out, like Shane did with his trading, oh, yes, that one was a loss, but all the things that are there in that trade are still there. So I'm going to now go back in and dispassionately evaluate it and re-establish a trade. And what happens? It does it. Then does he have an immediate win the next one? No, he has another trade that didn't work. But he's again evaluated the trade, and what happened? It took off and went. Those are things that if he didn't de-smush those two, if he didn't take a look and remove judgment from the evaluation, he's locked in. He's doing this and he's doing this with the evaluation. See, I'm evaluating. Yeah, sort of. But you're not letting go of the judgment that you placed on yourself that you're going to fail. Like, that's what you were telling yourself, is like, I can't see myself winning here. I don't know what to do. I'm not doing it right. You're doing everything right, but the timing was slightly off, but you let the timing get in the way of your opportunity in the past.
Oh yeah, for sure. In the past, I would have just been kicking myself that I lost that trade, and the next opportunity to take a trade, I would have not acted and had the positive results, and then I'd have lost the next trade, and then I'd have been down, and then I'd have been so mad that
Kind of spirals, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what happens when we don't take action in our life to actually make the real difference when things are identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable?
You just stay stuck.
And well, okay, like for you, Shane, it's like, okay, I'm going to see about coming in to Blair's coach training stuff. I don't want to be stuck without the ability to identify, repeat, and duplicate.
Correct.
I know the words, but now you're starting to learn the behaviors of these words and the power of those words changing your life and your financial life. What happened? Shane, you just had sort of a moment. What happened?
With my old self, and I caught myself, would have said, well, it took you about damn time, Shane. It's about time you learned something. But that's judging myself, and I just had to smile. I'm like, well, that's not where you are now. I'm proud of you for evaluating the situation and moving forward and not being, well, about damn time.
Yeah, well done updating.
Yeah,
Well
really.
done.
That's how come it's so critical, and I'm so passionate about making changes in people's lives and training other people to make changes in other people's lives.
Yeah.
And this de-smushing, when we are doing this to ourselves, we do it to others, not even intentionally. We do it accidentally. But once we separate and we gain clarity on that, there's a freedom, a felt sense of freedom that comes with this.
Yes.
Now, you've got areas in your lives that are free, that feel free. But, Patty, you shared at the top about 10 years of depression and all the people that you saw.
Yes.
And then you went through and you applied the mind models to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
now,
was like somebody pulling back the curtains.
and who
Well,
was that somebody?
that was you.
No, actually, it wasn't. I
You were the
put
one who
you,
pulled back the curtains. I
you're the
gave you
one that pulled them
permission to
back.
pull back the curtains.
That's right. All I did is gave you some tools to recognize this as a curtain, and you
Yes.
pulled it back.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was I had my own barriers and limiting beliefs surrounding this was just as good as life was going to get. This was just what life was. This was the way I was going to look at life because it was obviously just the truth, and as a
And how
pragmatic
long do you
person,
want to stay there? How
I
long do you
didn't
want
want
to
to
put
stay
that?
there. I just didn't realize I couldn't see options.
And
So
it's not an easy thing because you came in for 12 sessions, and I know at the time it wasn't easily affordable for you.
no, it wasn't at all. But
Hey,
we have never allowed those things to stop us because the value is so great. The value is like what price do you put on a life? What price do you put on the ability to manage your own thoughts and behaviors? And how do you put a price on a life? And that one was my life, and thankfully my husband was willing to do what it took to make that happen. Absolutely stars for him. He was very supportive, and at the time he saw more in me than I did. So I value that very much. So on that note, are there any more comments, or are we okay to shift into wrap up? Going once, going twice. Jackie, you mentioned that you're kind of short on time here. Did you want to participate in the wrap up?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
We can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just running low on battery, and I have to go to a place without Wi-Fi to plug it in, so I can't do that because I'd rather stay right till the end. Self-confidence and confidence was one of the major ones for me. Many people saw me as very confident, and inside I absolutely was not. I was a ball of nerves. And when I learned the difference about self-confidence and confidence, that really helped me separate it and be able to address it and work on it. And it's something even today I have to work on daily. I find things where I'm like, and I'm going, wait a minute, what am I doing to myself here? Because I know it's me doing it. And it's not, I know it's me who's in control of my self-confidence. So I'm sorry to join late. I was stuck in traffic, but here I am now. And yeah, I just looking forward to hearing the wrap up because I'll probably hear what happened the whole time I missed. So
What part of the world are you in now, Jackie?
I'm I'm in Cusco in Peru, and it's 10 o'clock at
Nice.
night. So yeah, I'm gonna go to Machu Picchu tomorrow or the next day.
I was going to ask if you were going to Machu Picchu.
Yeah,
that's
just
exciting.
adjusting to the altitude.
Yes, good job.
So did you go anywhere between Colombia and Peru, or did you go from Colombia to Peru?
Ecuador. Yeah, so
Ecuador.
it's been a trip, and yeah, but still lots to go, I hope.
Yep.
Wonderful.
I'll keep
Do
you
you have a
posted.
number
I'll keep
for us
joining.
tonight, Jackie?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was here for a little bit. 7.
Okay, thank you. So Sherry and Lori, being new, the wrap up, what we do with that is on a scale of 1 to 10, we ask you to identify one thing that worked for you, one take home, something of value for you, and then to put a number on the value that you received from the Blair Dunkley experience. So it's not a number on how well Blair did or how well I did, but what were you able to take home so that you can externalize the value of your experience tonight. Now, I always ask if you wish to participate, and you are very free to say no. But I will be asking, so I'm going to do some other people first, and you can kind of see how it works, and then decide if you wish to participate or not in that. So, Shane, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
For sure. Yeah, always great. Great time with you guys on Tuesday. The barriers where you can see through them were great. What Jackie said and talking about the self-confidence part, I'm I'm an outgoing guy. I don't meet strangers. I can talk to anybody, but you get in big crowds and I kind of get a little pulled back. But outward I'm approachable, I'm loud, I'm fun. And that gives the appearance that I'm super confident, but while inside in the past has been, full of fear and self-loathing and just stuck. So I was presenting a different side of what was actually happening inside, and I'm making those small shifts to bring that all out together. So 9.7 for me.
Thank you, Shane.
Lots of goosebumps tonight. Lots of goosebumps for me. So thank you.
Good. Well, thank you for being willing to share so much from your private experience that way and allowing us to learn from it. Very helpful. Leslie, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
Yes, thank you. Remarkable. I'm going to enjoy this series of barriers, blocks, and limiting beliefs because I think I've got a whole basket full and I'm starting to identify them. What was helpful was the categorizing emotional barriers, environmental barriers, or situational barriers. That just fits in my mind with the 3 E's of looking at a situation and being able to an end to and work to a resolve to move forward.
Mhm.
Um, especially.
There are other barriers that are imposed upon us that I didn't quite get into in my discussion. Like when I was married, there were barriers that were imposed upon me by my ex that I had to, that I found once I acknowledged what her barriers were, I could overcome them very rapidly.
Imposed barriers. I now have 4.
Yeah.
That's-
There are quite a few, by the way. It's more than 4, but these are some of the top ones. And I just wanted to,
This is a good place to start.
yeah, it is a very good place to start because we need to explore within ourselves and without. Because there are a lot of people that will hold us back from becoming the best that we can be because they're afraid they might have to change. If I change, they might have to change.
9.9.
Thank you. How
Leslie, were you finished? Did you give us?
Yeah, 9.9 for tonight, and it's
Thank you.
very valuable. Very valuable. I don't know if we'll get through all of this in 3 sessions.
Well, we might not. We might not. But we'll take it as people
Take it
want.
as it goes. Yeah.
Yes,
This
we'll take it as
exceptional,
it goes.
exceptional concepts.
We
Thank
can
you.
always add. We can always add a week for things that get traction. Hey, Lise, it's really good to see you. We're just in the middle of wrap up, and we are doing a series on barriers, blocks, and limiting beliefs. And so we were covering barriers tonight and blocks next week. So, Sherry, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Yes, I would. Thank you for the opportunity, Patty. I found it to be very valuable. I particularly, the takeaway that will probably stick with me the best is Blair's explanation of smushing and how to take a look at both sides of that coin, evaluation and judgment, and how they're very similar and very dissimilar and very interconnected, and how you have to really have that internal conversation with yourself and discern, am I judging or am I evaluating this, and where's the interconnect and where do I need to disconnect? So very helpful. I would give it a 9.9 as far as things that I'm going to take away. I really enjoyed it. Thank you both.
Thank you for participating, and well said, Sherry. I like that idea of connecting and disconnecting.
yes.
So let's see. Lori, would you like to participate in the wrap up tonight?
Sure. So I am, I'm thinking about the judgment. I said, well, why do we even judge in the first place? Because that gets us into trouble. But I'm sure there's a reason for it.
I think there's part of us that's kind of wired that way, Lori. I don't know anybody who doesn't get into that, even when it's not effective.
So I had that experience today where I was, I'd been on the computer for too long. I was feeling tired, and then I could see my brain kind of going into judgment and defeat and all whatever goes on, the muck and the mire. And I think I had a chance to sit back and realize what I was doing. And what I did is I was cold. I was cold. And so I went out for a walk. I said, okay, I'm going to go out where it's really cold, and that'll make it seem warm when I come back. And it was great. I went for about half an hour. And I think in that moment, I was able to go from that place of judgment, evaluate, and then shift. So, I mean, I'm just learning this concept, but it's that's definitely something I'm thinking about as a result of this call. And thinking about how barriers become blocks, and how it's almost like a spectrum. Like if you have so many barriers, then eventually it becomes a block. So I'm thinking about that. Sometimes this stuff makes me think a lot and that can hurt my brain. So that's my thing that I do. So I have to watch that. But really enjoy that there's an opportunity to do this in a place like this. So I'm gonna give it a 9 today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Jeremy, would you like to participate and wrap up tonight?
I am just giving, I was in the middle of giving Lise the link to the replay if I can, but anyway, here we go. That's done. Okay. So yeah,
Jeremy, for that.
I'm sorry. What would you say, Patty?
I just
Thank
said
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I enjoyed both, like I'd said, experiencing Shane. Actually, I mean, Shane just kind of reverberated for me throughout the whole evening, in terms of like how he's become like a full-figured experience that like I now know him a lot and that he's, been really generous with explaining and describing his experience. And that's like I've said before, like I like the community aspect of learning, and that's what I love the most about this experience for me. So there was that, but then there was also, like I said, I want to give feedback, and then I was able to stop, and then Blair was able to coach me on how to do that properly, and then I feel like I did it properly. Um, and just the whole experience of like I said, like Shane coming back from last week and giving us a report, and that kind of being so clear, and that it's just grown. Like it just seems like it was almost like a case study or a use case or whatever you want to call it. It just feels really cool like that. I also appreciated where Blair was talking and then Patty said, "Isn't that such and such?" And that was what I've experienced Patty has done. And that's where I get lost because I'm like, okay, so we were talking about one thing and now there's this and it's not like, hey, this is how this mind model relates to this one. And so I've gotten lost in the past. So along the lines of having advocated for myself in the past, I was able to ask a question and I just kind of inserted that moment. And then I got clarity that like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And it wasn't like I could have known that. And it just helped me
Correct.
like feel, I said clarity. It helped me move from concern about certainty to clarity because it didn't matter if I had certainty, but because I had now had clarity. And then, it's also like one of the times where I can remember where we entered a concept on the night, whereas a lot of the concepts have spread out over time. And, I couldn't quite figure out like where we were in space and time. So we kind of broached something from the get-go and started with it. So I enjoyed that as well. Yeah, and I would just say I love the way that I've been doing this wrap up right here because it just feels like very like bullet pointed. And yeah, so I give myself and everybody else a 10. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
And I feel like being silly and talking about how amazing it was to see this one woman win the Australian Open finals. It was an amazing story. If you don't know who Madison Keys is, you might enjoy going down a rabbit hole because she achieved something fantastic. So just throwing that in for fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I value the feedback. I will work on my transition. So, Colin, do you wish to participate and wrap up tonight?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Patty. I just wanted to say, Patty, I've really enjoyed watching you flourish as a trainer and facilitator. It seems like you get better every week. Maybe that's just me being able to see more things, but anyway, thank you for your leadership. I really enjoyed Shane. Thank you so much for all of your sharing. I resonated with a lot of that, and it really helped me to gain clarity on barriers, blocks, and beliefs, which was much needed. I loved seeing new faces tonight, Sherry and Lori. It's good to see you here. I think it does change the dynamics in a positive way. So I appreciated that. And yeah, Patty, you asked this question at one point. You put it really nicely. What price do you put on a life? And that really condensed a lot of the things I've been thinking about lately in a helpful way. So I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit and see what it does. So thank you for that. I'll give it a 9 tonight.
You're welcome. Shannon, are you available to participate and wrap up tonight?
Yeah.
There
Actually,
you are.
Colin, can I ask you a question really quick?
Sure.
In the chat, you put judgment is expediency. Can you elaborate on that? I was really curious about that because I've like partially got it. And then I was like, I want to know more about what you were thinking when you typed that.
Sure. Yeah, I'll keep it really short. Basically, the brain is values efficiency extremely highly, tries to do things for low calorie cost. And so judgment is a low calorie activity. It's very fast to the point, heuristic, just snap to it, done with it, move on.
Awesome. Thank you. No, I like that description for like it was such an interesting pairing of words. It took me a second and then I was like, wait, that makes sense, but I would like to, and I love that low calorie. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Low cal.
Shane, I was really excited to hear how your week went last week. So thank you for sharing. That's been so fun to watch just over the course of knowing you and seeing all of the incredible things that you're shifting and growing and learning. It's just your energy is different. It's really fun to see. So congratulations. That was really awesome. I also got a lot out of listening to everybody's wrap ups tonight. There's some really fun treasures in everything that everyone has to say. So thank you, Leslie, and everybody for sharing. Mom, do you have a like really short definition of a barrier? Like, do you have your definitions listed?
Yes. Short definition of a barrier.
I just need to hear it once.
Anything that restrains or obstructs progress.
Okay. Because I was looking at that from a really literal point of view in my mind. And one of the things, and maybe I missed it, but that I didn't hear discussed a lot was curiosity and asking questions. Because when I think about barriers, it's something like super physical. And that was the other thing that was new to me tonight too, Blair, is the different types and categories of barriers. Like my whole mind blossomed into thinking about barriers from a different perspective when you brought that up. Because I can really relate to things that are external and concrete, also can be internal, which is where I used to think about it from. So taking it from an internal place and pulling it into an external place is what got me on the train about curiosity and how to cultivate resourcefulness with barriers. Because I feel like that really practical question asking process, what might I do about that? What might I do about that? Plans A, B, and C. Some of those really classical mind models came to the front of my head when you were thinking about that in terms of overcoming a really external physical barrier. How can I get creative? How can I get resourceful? How can I look at this from a different perspective? So some of those things that have been cultivated and trained into me over the years from this experience, looking at that and overlaying those with like external barriers, but also reminding myself to keep that in an internal place as well. If I feel stuck, I can ask myself the same questions internally and to cultivate those same resources, both internal and external. So that was really a new layer to the subject of barriers for me that I appreciated. Smooshing is always a fun one to hear you talk about. And when you were talking about that, I started thinking mentally, I was picturing self, others, and situation, and how easy it is to see those three Venn diagrams start to smoosh together, and what mind models I would use to pull them apart again. And I know other mind models can smoosh, but that one, since we use the picture of the Venn diagram most often with that one, that's the one that popped into my head when you were talking about smooshing. And just the amount of self-control it takes for me personally when I start to blur the edges of things, even when I know and I have a process and I know how to do something, smooshing can happen like it can be creepy and come in from like behind, and then you don't realize it's happening. And to stay really present, the importance of staying present for me, and keeping my thoughts on what it is that I'm working on. And so that level of self-control, like, yes, I do see that, but let's keep that over there and stay here. So, yeah, it was a really valuable night. Lots and lots of great content and words and sharing from everybody. So that's a 9 for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Brent, would you like to give us your wrap up tonight?
Yes, I will. I enjoyed, and one first thing, Shane and Blair both going and giving examples, real life examples, and digging into that and seeing and identifying what those barriers are, so you can actually see what it's like, and maybe helping to identify that in ourselves. Looking at things and how our lives play out, and what those things are, so we can identify those as well. Maybe something that you know personally, you miss on the internal side, like Shane, is the self-confidence, is that a limiting belief? I've had that too, and that's something I do every now, not so much now, but used to, struggle with, and didn't know what that was, but I knew same situation Shane was in, and you're just like, well, you're just not quite sure what it is, but something's there, but you don't identify it. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I enjoyed like these three things. Barriers, blocks, and beliefs is a big one. I mean, that's one thing to identify those, to getting to move past them. But figuring what those are, figuring out what those are is the most difficult part. And being able to go through this again is very helpful. And breaking it down to each one, like going over each one individually to separate them out, so we can, spend more time identifying what those things are, and being able to see that. So I give tonight a 9 for me.
Thank you, Brent.
Mhm.
Well, for me, it was a 9 as well. I had not seen Blair do the hand thing with evaluation and judgment, but I liked looking at the smooshing this way and seeing the concepts sort of bleed into one another. I found that very valuable. So, Lisa, I know you got here at the very, very end. I didn't know if you had anything that you wish to share in terms of wrap up at all.
Well, just listening to what I've heard in the last bit when we talk about barriers, there are invisible barriers as well as physical.
Yep.
I grew up with deaf parents, and doesn't mean that we all learn sign language, but my dad was post-linguistic deafness due to meningitis at around age 7, and in a coma 40 days, woke up, he was deaf. And my mom, about 18 months old, had scarlet fever. So lack of access to language is a barrier.
Yes.
So I just wanted to add that.
That's a great example of what Blair calls the imposed barriers.
Mhm.
They're imposed on a life. So thank you for sharing that example.
And with that comes judgment and the whole gamut. So yeah, but thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm glad you dropped in, even for a short time. And Lori, Lise, Sherry, all of you, we look forward to seeing you again. I hope that you'll join us again next week. Blair, would you like to give us your wrap up and then take us out?
Certainly. Thank you. So I threw in, Shannon asked for the definitions. I threw that into the chat, and then I threw in some examples that we have of barriers, blocks, and beliefs.
Yes, not an exhaustive list. It's just a few examples.
Yeah, exactly. It's not meant to be exhaustive. So, well, for me, tonight was a 9. It was good. It was solid. I like doing this one with the smushing. I haven't done that much. But it's a good metaphor, physical metaphor, yes, of how we hold ourselves stuck. And I've been noticing that there are possibilities to get ourselves past things, but we hold ourselves stuck because We are meeting other people's limitations, complying. We are seeing our own set of limiting beliefs, holding ourselves stuck on what we can and cannot do at the moment, and therefore we don't take action. And we justify, and we make it okay with ourselves to not take action and figure out problems, because it's easier not to take action. So that's a huge piece of what is motivating me to get things so that we can evaluate what's working and what's not working, and see the judgments and the limiting beliefs that we hold ourselves stuck with, and break free. With that, hey guys, we have the study guide that is there. We have, as Patty said on the intro, that we have it's onward since episode 18, and it's with the BDE insider notes, like at blairdunkley.com. You can join that and purchase the notes. $300 for the year, $25 a month, and that moves forward. We're also on YouTube, and please like, subscribe, and comment if you don't mind. I would love for you guys to go there and make comments, and to like it and subscribe to the Blair Dunkley Experience, please. It helps grow the movement that I am working at sharing with people, and helping that to go forward. And it helps people transition and find out about mind models where they don't know about them. It's useful that they can find out about them. Makes a big difference in people's lives. So with that, I would love it if people would consider doing mini testimonials that could be like mini short 1 minute or less testimonials of what mind models has meant to you, what you get out of mind models. If you could do that, that would be amazing. So I'd really appreciate that. And if you don't want to do it, if you'd like to jump on a call with me, I'd be more than willing to book a call and record something and then edit it up and have you guys approve it, if that's okay with you, like what you got from it, what you're getting from mind models. That, I think, is going to be an important transition point and help other people find the value for mind models. Anyway, with that, Patty, was there anything else that you wanted me to go through or share?
I think that's it.
Okay. With that, guys, I wish you adieu, and have a great night and a great week. And I shall see you next Tuesday.
See you all next week. Yes.
Yeah. And thank you, Lise, Lori, and Sherry for coming. Really appreciated that, and everybody else.